On today's Locked On Jayhawks, we preview Kansas's second round matchup with the Arkansas Razorbacks. No, this is not the Liberty Bowl. This is the NCAA Tournament.
You are Locked On Jayhawks, your daily podcast on the Kansas Jayhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm Derek Johnson. You can hear me as well Monday through Friday from 3 to 6 p.m. on KLWN in Lawrence with Rock Chalk Sports Talk. Thanks for making Locked On Jayhawks here your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get any of your podcasts. You can also find us, subscribe to us, watch us, listen to us on YouTube. And as you know, I am still out of town, so apologies for not the mic quality audio. But yesterday's didn't sound as good. I'm switching over to the iPhone headphones, so hopefully those will go a little bit better here. And on today's edition of Locked On Jayhawks, we're going to be discussing the second round matchup for KU that is now set. Kansas advances past Howard. Arkansas takes down Illinois in a game that they kind of just stiff-armed them and kept them at arm's length the entire game and ended up winning 73-63. So that sets up a matchup between the number 1 seed and the number 8 seed in the second round. And two teams who are basically top 20 in KenPom. Arkansas was 20th. They're now 21st after some of the results yesterday. Not really their fault for dropping from 20 to 21, just some other teams kind of hopping in front of them. But first, this episode of Locked On Jayhawks is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started today. So top storylines headed into this game, I guess. We could have the Liberty Bowl storyline, right? It's a rematch from the Liberty Bowl, and Arkansas trying to have pure domination for the way to pronounce Kansas, whatever. We've heard that storyline so many times with the Liberty Bowl, so I guess we can just regurgitate them here. Kansas looking to get a little athletic program, revenge, I guess you could say. Maybe Kansas will win the same way that Arkansas does. Like this would be probably not fun if you're a fan watching the team, but they're going to be up like 20. Arkansas is going to come back, hit some like half court buzzer beater to force overtime. It's going to go to a triple overtime or whatever the Liberty Bowl did. And then Arkansas is going to miss like a wide open of the equivalent of what would happen there. So I think that would certainly be funny. But nonetheless, I think the other top storylines here is you have kind of a, young up-and-coming head coach in Eric Musselman. He's not like the youngest guy in the world. He's actually older than you think. But in terms of his college basketball career, he is on the younger side there. He's kind of the up-and-comer. Like, is he going to be the next guy to take one of the big-wig jobs if something opens up, like in North Carolina or, I don't know, maybe even like Texas this offseason. Who knows? Versus kind of the old guard with Bill Self. And there's our next storyline. Like, what's the status again of Bill Self? That was a storyline headed into the last game. That'll continue to be a storyline as he looks to kind of get back into things. And I just kind of remain under the assumption that this week would not be a Bill Self week, that maybe next week could get there. But I guess we'll wait and see on that. Bill Self is certainly helping. He's helping with the game plan, with the filming, with practices, with advice for Norm Roberts and the coaching staff. So he's still giving his input and giving advice and everything. But we'll see if he actually is on the sideline because, there is such a big advantage you have with him out there, whether it's just the presence for the team or, working the refs or working out of bounds plays after timeout plays, sideline play. Like, he's so good at that stuff. I mean, he's just good at everything. That's why he's the best coach in college basketball. Certainly you miss him when he's not there. And it was one thing when you play Howard without him, it's another to play Arkansas. Now, I did mention this earlier in this week, and I'll bring it back up again. With Norm Roberts, they are now 7-1. And among those 7 wins, well, I guess the one loss was to a 2-seed Texas, who Houston didn't look too good last night. I don't know. Texas might be going to a Final Four. Beyond that, among the victories for Norm Roberts of those 7, while there are some Howards in there and Southern Utahs, there's also, they have a win over Duke, who's a 5 seed who looked really good beating Oral Roberts yesterday. Also, 5 seed is a better seed than the 8 seed Kansas playing in the second round. They beat a 6 seed Iowa State by double digits. That's a better seed than an 8 seed. They beat 9 seeded West Virginia, which that's kind of equivalent to what Kansas is playing here in Arkansas, right? So you do have trust that Norm Roberts can get them through this round, but obviously every little bit matters, and this is not a game that's projected to be a wide margin. You look at KenPom, has Kansas winning by 3 points. The early line that came out was 4.5 points on FanDuel. So this is not supposed to be a very divided 1-8 matchup, and that certainly is a storyline here as well. The fact that, this is supposed to be kind of possible upset alert for KU. Obviously, the NCAA tournament, just in general, chance to make the Sweet 16 is a storyline. And I think the chance for a defending champ to make the Sweet 16 for the first time since 2016, that's a storyline here too. The last team to win the national championship, then the next year make at least the Sweet 16 was Duke. They won the title 2015. They made the Sweet 16 in 2016. The last defending champ to even make the Elite Eight was that 07 Florida team. So that's a storyline down the road if Kansas can win this game and moves on to the Sweet 16 and then would be vying for the Elite Eight. So those are some of the top storylines of the game, I think, coming into this one. I thought Kansas, you kind of shedded off any of the worries you may have had about, are guys playing injured? Are they dealing with this or that? They look pretty good out there. I guess you could probably add the pro talk, the NBA talk storylines of, you have Anthony Black, who's probably going to be a first-round pick, and you have Nick Smith, who's going to be a lottery pick for Arkansas, going up against Gradey Dick, who's going to be a lottery pick. So you have kind of the freshman flair into this game. You also have the wings that are the more veteran players with Jalen Wilson. Oops, apologies for that. And Kevin McCullough, who are planning on being like second-round draft picks. Who knows? Maybe they could work their way into a late first if Kansas has a deep tournament run and they impress and everything, and they have a chance to, go up against guys who are seen as high level prospects. So that certainly is going to be interesting. I think the last storyline I have here is actually about Kansas playing second games in NCAA tournaments. The record for Bill Self in first games, whether it's the first round, the Sweet 16, Final Four, it has been immaculate. And the majority of the losses have come in the second game in the 3-day span, the Elite Eight, the second round. You don't have as much time to prepare for a coach that is so good at when you give him extra time to prepare that it's really tough for other teams. So that'll certainly be interesting and how this Bill Self thing kind of affects all of that as well. All right, we're going to get on to our Arkansas scouting report in just a second here. But first, this episode of Locked On Jayhawks is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. The midway point of the NBA season is here, and now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from money line to point scores and three-pointers drained. You can get in on the action for KU and Arkansas at 4.5, at least right now. Who knows which way that line is going to move or if it's going to stick around. I like for kind of individual players. I think Nick Smith has a bounce back game for Arkansas for points. I also expect Jalen Wilson to have a big game trying to kind of grind KU through. FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with same game parlays. Don't miss your chance to get a no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. On to our scouting report here of the Arkansas Razorbacks. They come in at 21-13 on the season, obviously out of the SEC. We had Nick Schwerdt on earlier this week, and he kind of talked about this, but Arkansas didn't really beat some of the other good teams. They had a lot of opportunities on their schedule. Now, I guess they did have the big win in overtime over San Diego State at the Maui Invitational, but in SEC play, they couldn't really capitalize. I guess you could add in, they also played Creighton really close. Once they got to SEC play, they have a win over Missouri by 6 at home. And obviously it looks like Missouri is going to be a possible Sweet 16 squad now that Princeton beat Arizona. So that'll look good. But Missouri's ranked 47th on KenPom. That's not a win of like the same tier of what Kansas is, right? They beat Texas A&M by 11. And Texas A&M is ranked 30th right now on KenPom. So, again, a good win, but it's not the same tier of Kansas. If you're looking for the same tier of Kansas, you're looking for top 10 type opponents, top 15 type opponents that they've played. They played Alabama. They lost by 15 at home. Alabama's third on KenPom. They played Baylor in Waco. They lost by 3. They played Alabama again on the road. They lost by 3. They played Tennessee on the road. They lost by 18. If you want to toss Kentucky in there, who's kind of like top 25-ish, they lost by 9 at home. So this team has not gotten that big win yet. They have gotten close a few times, but that's what they're going to have to do in this game that they haven't shown to do so far. And something that Nick Short was also talking about was this Kansas team hasn't lost bad games. And this wouldn't be a bad loss. Arkansas is 21st in Ken Palm and all that stuff. But these are the games they've done a good job of avoiding losing this season. Like the games they've lost big, it's to, Texas, or even though TCU is like around this range in Ken Palm or a 6 seed, we know that when they're healthy and when everybody was together, they were closer to probably being like a top 15 team in the country. So we'll see how that affects it. Arkansas is 55th in the country on offense. They are 13th in the country on defense. So really good defense. They are athletic. They have a lot of good, talented young players. They have a lot of good athletes. They get out in transition. They score at a high level. They score really well on pick and roll. You also see the kind of NBA flair from Eric Musselman from his past, in that what he uses with the pick and roll a lot, that he will go after it over and over. He will go after certain matchups and switches over and over, which is kind of the NBA way of thinking here, which makes it interesting for Kansas. How do they approach this? Do they tag the roll man? Do they switch 5 where Arkansas could get a matchup that they like? Do they stick, maybe Kevin McCullough on Anthony Black and DeJuan Harris on Nick Smith or something like that, and switch other spots? That's going to be really interesting to see how Kansas approaches this with their defensive strategy. Arkansas does play up tempo, 48th in the country in tempo this season. I think that is possibly a good thing for KU. Now they're 136th, I should say, in offensive tempo, adjusted possession length offensively. So they play fast, they get out in transition, but when they don't get in transition, they're half-court thing, right? Meanwhile, defensively, though, they're 47th, which tells me they can be prone sometimes to giving up transition the other way, which is good for Kansas. And I always like the matchups more that are up and down than the ones that are slower for this Kansas team, because they are good in transition. But also at times you are going to want to play in the half court because you're not like a full-fledged up and down team this year. Offensively, what else Arkansas does well? They shoot twos really well. They get to the rim with that athleticism, whether it's in transition or the half court off those pick and rolls. And they're top 60 in the country in 2-point rate. They also get to the free throw line a lot. When you have as good of athletes as you are and you consistently drive to the rim, you're going to get fouled, and they've done a good job at that so far this season. They're not a great offensive rebounding team, but they're above average there. So, that is something that you have to make sure you kind of shore up. But weaknesses on the offensive side of the ball, they are horrible at shooting the ball. They're 282nd in the country in free throw percentage. They are 305th in the country in 3-point percentage. And here's one big difference of the Arkansas game versus the Illinois game. Illinois and Arkansas both rank in the 300s in 3-point percentage. But Illinois still shoots them at a very, very high rate. So Illinois, because of that, makes them dangerous, right? To where they could shoot themselves out of the game. They could, go 3 for 25 from 3 and it loses them the game. Or because they take a lot, they could end up going 12 of 30 and then it wins them the game. With Arkansas, they are 348th in the country in the amount of shots that they take that end up being from 3, which means that not only do they not really shoot them well, they don't take a ton. So even if they do have a hot shooting game, it might only be 6 of 14. Where it's not as much of a backbreaker as a team who's going to try to Villanova you, right? So that could actually be a good thing for this match, because how many times have we seen Kansas play a team that shoots above their skis in an NCAA tournament game? And if Arkansas does that, the positive that you rely on here and that you hope is that, well, even if they shoot above their skis percentage-wise, they're not going to take a ton of threes, so it might not be like an overwhelming outlier performance. And that could be a positive for KU of playing Arkansas versus Illinois. Outside of that, though, you probably would have rather played Illinois, because this Arkansas team is very athletic, very good, and that defense leads the way. Like I said, 13th in the country in defensive efficiency. They are 20th in effective field goal defense. They defend twos really well. They defend threes really well. They're 15th in the country in the amount of shots that they allow teams to get off from threes, like from a low level. So they do a good job defending the arc. They do a good job defending the rim, 46th in the country, 22nd in 3-point defense on the outside. They get a good amount of blocks. They're top 20 in block rate. They protect the rim with that athleticism. They force turnovers, 23rd in the country in steal rate, 63rd in turnover rate defensively. Kind of the one thing that they just don't really do well defensively is they foul teams too much. They're 331st in the country in the amount of times they put teams to the line, basically free throw to field goal rate. So KU should be able to drive, be aggressive, and earn some fouls. That's why I look to Jalen Wilson. This could be a game where he ends up with like 8 to 12 free throw attempts if he just stays aggressive and keeps driving to the lane. Also, Arkansas kind of in the same ilk of their offensive rebounding. Like, they're an above average defensive rebounding team, but they're not great at it. So that could be something that Kansas could exploit. They were kind of middle of the pack in SEC play, 7th in regards to both. As far as the lineup for Arkansas, you're going to see a lot of Anthony Black at the point guard spot, but he can also play kind of on the wing because he's 6'7". So you'll see him up and down the lineup, kind of 1 through 4. Devontae Davis has really kind of taken off here of late. He'll be playing as a guard for them who can score double-digit score there. Black gets like 13 a game, fills it up with assists and rebounds. He's kind of a streak shooter from 3, but not a great three-point shooter. Nick Smith for Arkansas is their possible top 5 pick, and he is just like an all-out scorer. He can score in a lot of different ways. Athletic, 6'5", really good shooting guard. Ricky Council plays at kind of the 2-3 spots for them at 6'6" on the wing. He can fill it up in a hurry, kind of a veteran player. He's a junior. He can kind of take over a game. And then they've just got kind of like lengthy athletic wings, either at the 4 or, the 5, like Jordan Walsh, Mekhi Mitchell, who will also play at the center. You have Mikael Mitchell, who I believe they're twins. They're both seniors. Give them good size down low. You'll see some small ball with Walsh or maybe Kamani Johnson down low for them inside. So it's an athletic team. It's a lengthy team where they don't necessarily have like the 7-footer, which is a positive for KU. But every position is tall. Like Devontae Davis, 6'4", Nick Smith, 6'5", Ricky Council, 6'6", Jordan Walsh, Anthony Black, 6'7", Mekhi and Mikael Mitchell, 6'9" each and 230 to 240 pounds. So it's kind of length up and down the lineup. But the good news for Kansas, because of that 3-wing lineup outside of DeJuan Harris, they're kind of the same way so far this season. All right, let's finish things up here with Locked On Jayhawks with our matchups of the game. But first, this episode is brought to you by Built Bar. Are you looking for a delicious treat but don't want all the fat and calories? Then you got to try a Built Bar. You want to eat healthier, especially this time of year. You're eating wings and all these probably not great for you foods while you're watching all the great March Madness action, but you want to, gain something back to make you feel like you ate a little healthier during the day. And maybe if you're snacking between meals, again, you want something healthier. So Built Bar is perfect. They're covered in 100% real chocolate, so they taste good, and they have unbelievable flavors too to make that taste even better, like churro, peanut butter brownie, coconut almonds. They have only 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and a whopping 17 grams of protein. And you don't even need to wait around to get a box anymore. You can still order, while you're watching your March Madness games, you're in between games. The worst thing in the world happens, and they have all 4 games on commercial at the same time, which should be illegal. But you're like, oh no, what do I do with my minute or two to spare? Well, pull up your phone, go to built.com. You can order your Built Bars. Or if you're buying near Walmart or Sam's Club, head into your nearest Walmart, go to the pharmacy section, grab a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puffs. Close to Sam's Club, grab a 13-bar box with brownie batter, churro. You can thank me later with Built Bar. Finishing things up with matchups here. I think the way that KU defends, as I was kind of alluding to, is going to change some of this stuff up, and also is probably the most intriguing actual matchup of this for me is how KU kind of deals with that. But KJ Adams versus the size of the Mitchell twins, that'll be interesting. And can he avoid foul trouble? Now, this should also be a game because of those 2 Mitchell twins. You're going to see a lot of Ernest Udeh, and that's what I want to see. How can the freshmen do against the senior centers of Arkansas? I'm very interested in that matchup, especially when you look at how much Arkansas is going to attack the rim, right? That means that somebody's got to be a rim protector down low. There's going to be a lot more pressure, I think, put on Ernest Udeh and KJ Adams. Maybe this could be one of those, Cole Aldridge Final Four breakout games for KU for a young player like an Ernest Udeh. That would certainly be beneficial for KU. I think that Kevin McCullough, whoever he ends up guarding, I don't know if it'll be Nick Smith or Ricky Council, but that'll be very fun to me because you'll have one of the best scorers on this team against Kevin McCullough. But how could we not go with the freshman matchup, right? Even if they're not guarding each other. Nick Smith versus Gradey Dick. You have one guy who is more power, athleticism, speed, scores in a multitude of ways. Gradey Dick, more of the finesse, 3-point shooter. And we know he has a different, versatile game of being able to score and everything. But can he hold up on the defensive end too? He struggled a little bit with Howard. Now, Howard has a lot of shorter, quicker guards, and Arkansas has a lot of speed and quickness too. So I'm not taking away from that, but I wonder if this is maybe a little bit better of a matchup for him because it's more of the size to size type of comparison for Gradey Dick. But yeah, those freshmen against each other is going to be really interesting. And then I think DeJuan Harris against possibly either Anthony Black or if it is Devontae Davis are really interesting matchups to me in terms of kind of the player matchups. I do expect a big game from Jalen Wilson in this one. And then can you get anything from your bench? Arkansas doesn't have like a 12-man bench or anything like that, but they get consistent efforts off the bench from a couple guys. And for Kansas, the bench looked good against Howard, but it's also Howard. And for most of the season, including leading up to the game, the bench did not look good. So bench versus bench is interesting. Outside of that, foul trouble, I think, is a huge matchup in this game. Arkansas fouls a ton, but they get fouled a ton. And for KU, you have to avoid foul trouble with those starters specifically. If Ernest Uday gets in foul trouble, it is what it is. But if Jalen or Kevin or whoever, where the possible problem is. So outside of that, the three-point shooting matchup going to be interesting. Arkansas defends it well. KU needs to get Gradey Dick going from three from the outside back to that matchup. And also KU needs to do a good job of defending the interior on pick and rolls, which is probably the biggest matchup of the game in terms of one scheme thing for KU. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Jayhawks. We'll have some sort of recap after the Arkansas game, whether it's this weekend or upcoming on Monday. Thanks for joining us today. You can check us out wherever you get any of your podcasts. You can find us on YouTube. You can also subscribe to us there and give us a positive review with a thumbs up or wherever you have a review platform on your podcast. Have a good rest of your day. And